Hey, Jeff.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. By the way, as a quick aside, you worked with Matt Finlan and Eddie Vedder. You did the music video, right?
Yeah.
Matter of Time music video.
Yeah.
As a movie dude, did you end up watching Matt's documentary, The Movie Man?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it was cool.
Do you and the family ever go down to that theater too?
No, I didn't know about it. I haven't been there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That seems like a very Jeff Lemire,
Yeah, I know.
Yo, and welcome to My Summer Lair. I'm your host, Sammy. Even though I've grown up in Ontario, I'm such a city kid that I've never bought the farm, Younan. I'm thrilled, ecstatic and thrilled to welcome one of my absolute favorite creators currently working in comics, Jeff Lemire. From his hauntingly beautiful breakout Essex County to the sci-fi loneliness that colors Sweet Tooth, Lemire's graphic storytelling, it creates a profound emotional path to the reader. Jeff writes, this is a quote, direct quote, "Comics is such a deeply personal medium. No other modern art form is so immediate. I can sit down at my desk and draw comics, and they can be in a reader's hand within a few months, totally unfiltered," end quote. Jeff's observation is lifted from his latest project, 10,000 Inkstains, published by Dark Horse Comics, the exact same publisher that issued all of Jeff's fantastic Black Hammer comics. Black Hammer is so good. Written in the first person, it's all prose. 10,000 Inkstains unpacks Lemire's 25-year career as a professional cartoonist, comic book writer, and even as a showrunner for the CBC Limited series adaptation of his graphic novel, Essex County. That's still floating on CBC Gem, actually, if you want to check that out. The title 10,000 Inkstains is a play on Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 Hours. Remember that whole thing? I think it was a Bieber song, too. It's been a while since any of us had Bieber fever. So, it's the idea that if you do anything for 10,000 hours, you'll get good at it. I'm pretty sure I left it in this episode when I was editing it. But Jeff Lemire's 10,000 Inkstains, 10,000 Hours includes his DC comic works, Frankenstein, Agent of Shade, Animal Man, of course, Animal Man, Green Arrow, Batman and Robin. And then over at Marvel, Jeff has worked on Hawkeye, Old Man Logan, and Moon Knight. His Mooney run with artist Greg Smallwood is fantastic. In this My Summer Lair conversation, Jeff and I also talk about his X-Men work, which was sadly disappointing. He highlights moments from his 10,000 Inkstains memoir, and he explains why the X-Men work was unsatisfying. When he and I discuss his work at the Big Two, he shares his approach, often seeing the characters and even their superpowers as metaphors for what's going on in his own life. In Animal Man, Jeff was able to explore fatherhood and what being a dad means. Jeff has a son whose name is Gus, the same character in Sweet Tooth, although I don't think his son has the antlers. Outside of the Big Two is where Jeff truly shines as a storyteller. Gideon Falls, Secret Path with Gord Downey, Frog Catchers, Maze Book. Maze Book is amazing. And Underwater Welder are all highly recommended. A recent graphic novel, Fish Flies, is a very, very Jeff Lemire work. It's got the isolation of small-town Ontario, a wanted criminal who reluctantly befriends a loser little girl, Franny Fox. But then the graphic novel goes all, X-Files, and the criminal turns into a giant bug. It's weird, and it's local, and it's charming, and it's very Jeff Lemire. I bring up the Canadianness that runs through his work. Jeff has fans, and he has readers across America and across Europe. Yet often he sets his indie comics in small-town Ontario. In Fish Flies, a cop is sent to Chatham, Ontario. Essex County is a real area. I've been there, like Leamington, for example. Shout out to the giant tomato. Jeff points out the personal becomes the universal. NPR describes 10,000 Inkstains as somewhere between a memoir and a love letter. 10,000 Inkstains is a testament to imagination and to collaboration. Talking to Jeff, I describe 10,000 Inkstains as his greatest hits album. Imagine he was a big band like the Chili Peppers or Coldplay or U2. That's his greatest hits album. Truly, it is a love letter to art and to comics and to the dedication of your craft. Jeff is known for his personal storytelling, and this is just the latest chapter, but it's the most personal because it's directly from Jeff, and it is about Jeff. It strips away all the metaphors and it just gives you Jeff Lemire. In this My Summer Lair conversation, we dig into attending film school at Ryerson University, taking creative risks, how making comics has been a lifesaver for him, and how drawing your life literally can make sense of it. Another person who's working on 10,000 hours of practice is Stephanie, and she is really a professional, and she's got the My Summer Lair introduction. Hit it.
Sound, the final frontier. My Summer Lair is an enterprise, a pop culture voyage with a continuing mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new creators and celebrate established producers, to boldly go where no podcast has gone before. And now here is your host, Sammy Younan.
I don't know how I'm going to do the introduction. You do so much work. It's hard to
No, too much.
He just does comics. I think that'll probably be the introduction. Actually, I want to start with Royal City, which I know is an odd place to start with all of your work.
Sure.
But the description for people that don't know Royal City, the description on Image Comics website says the comic book series charts the loves and losses of a troubled family and a vanishing town across 3 decades, which doesn't really cover it. However, with Royal City, you release Spotify soundtracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. So normally, do you write and draw to music?
I write to music. Yeah, I do a lot of, it's my writing and when I do the penciling kind of in the initial work, it's all music. And then when I'm inking, it doesn't require the same sort of concentration. So I generally I'll watch TV shows or something in the background while I'm inking. But yeah, when I'm writing and penciling and stuff, I'm always listening to music. Yeah.
Does each project have like a soundtrack, like a Sweet Tooth album or something like that you were listening to kind of consistently?
Probably, it's just kind of, yeah, like whatever I was listening to when I was doing those books. But some of them are, some books take years, like 4 or 5 years to do. So the soundtrack might be pretty sprawling and change a lot. And then shorter things, you might just be into a few things during the span of it. But yeah, I guess they all kind of do. Although now I find lately I just kind of keep going back to the same music over and over again. So yeah, I think a lot of the soundtracks would be the same soundtrack probably.
Can you give me an example of what some of the stuff you listen to is?
Oh my gosh. It tends to be stuff like post-punk and new wave stuff from the early 80s and late 90s, and then like a lot of indie rock from the 90s. Yeah, I'm kind of stuck in the 90s, I guess. I don't know. I guess that's when I was like my most impressionable. So like all that music kind of dug a pretty deep groove in me,
Mm-hmm. I mean, you did work with Gord, right? Tragically Hip.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's that same era, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm curious about your creative approach, obviously. That's why I asked about music. But 10,000 Ink Stains, your memoir, it has a lot of text. It has a lot of prose. Did you ever consider doing like a full-out graphic novel like Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics? Like he's literally in there. There's Craig Thompson's Blankets, like similar nonfiction graphic novel formats like that. Did you ever consider going that route, or was it always going to be text?
There was like a brief inkling of an idea of maybe I should draw this stuff rather than just write it. I don't know. Drawing autobiographical comics just never really appealed to me. A lot of my stuff has a lot of me in it, but I always I like to create fictional characters and worlds and then kind of put real stuff in that, rather than just direct autobio stuff. And a big part of this project for me too was like sharing a lot of process material and like stuff from my sketchbooks and stuff.
You show how the magic trick is done.
Yeah, and that became the visual element, so it kind of already had that. So yeah, no, it didn't. It was, I think in some ways more cathartic just to write it all out, because drawing just takes so long. It's hard to be in the moment because it just takes so long for it to actually be executed. And then, so yeah, it just felt like the right thing, just to kind of let the process material be the visual aspect and tell the story through prose.
I was surprised at how often you would just be like sketching something in your sketchbooks. This is one of the phrases you kind of see throughout 10,000 Ink Stains. And it's like, oh, this is a story here, right? Like Essex, I think Essex County started off that way. Gideon Falls, like just kind of a random sketch. It's not like you necessarily had a plot or even a real defined character. It's just like you're like jazz almost, right? Like you're doing a lot of improvisation.
Yeah, like I think most of my ideas don't come fully formed, or I don't go into it saying I want to do a story about this and then start building it. It's like like some random doodle I've done, or like some weird combination of two words I find I put together for some weird reason that spark like a feeling or a
Underwater welder.
Yeah, just like it's just the weirdest things and you also can never really know. You can sit around like trying to come up with a new book for a year and a half and just not really come up with anything good. And then you'll just be walking around one day and see some random thing and it's like sparks something that, you know what I mean? You can't predict it's going to happen. You just kind of have to be open to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the hardest things. I think Stephen King's also talked about this as well, where like people ask him all the time, where do you get your ideas from? And it's not like there's an idea store or something, right? Like he can just go there and then come back with it. It's like, here you go. I got like a haunted hotel, a haunted car. Like, you know what I mean? Like there is no idea stores. It's a weird thing to describe your process when your process isn't as a process.
It doesn't come all at once. It's often it'll be a combination of a whole bunch of different little ideas that you've kind of had that don't really work on their own, but together they start to make something more, you know? So it often takes a long time. Like you get kind of a loose idea for something and kind of carry it around for a year or so. And then you get another idea and then you're like, oh, if these two things go together, and then it starts to snowball into something more significant. But it really is a process like that of putting smaller ideas together, you know?
Yeah, and that's what partly your memoir covers is your 25-year comic book career from like Essex County to Sweet Tooth to Maze Book. Maze Book was dope. Lots more. Black Hammer, of course. So, but as you read each chapter, which highlights certain comics or a graphic novel, you consistently write like, okay, this is done now. Like, what's the next story? What do I want to tell? And this is what we're talking about. Like, you seem more forward focused. So how was the experience to sort of step back and like review and look at what your work is?
Yeah, it was weird. You're right. Like I often, ever since I started doing stuff, you know, I don't really go back and look at old stuff or like dwell on my past work too much. I'm almost immediately always on to the next thing. And
even when you do interviews too, like people ask you like, what's the next book? What's the next project? Right? Like your whole career is just kind of forward facing.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of reached a point, maybe because of COVID, you know, I think everyone was sort of taking stock of their life in a different way after that. And I was, you know, I got a bit older and I guess it just seemed like I realized at some point that, wow, it's almost been 25 years I've been doing this and put out a lot of stuff. And it just became a little more like, it seemed like a good time just to take a step back, kind of look at everything I'd done. And then hopefully that would inform what I was going to do next, you know? So, you know, in a way it was selfish because I was kind of like taking stock of the old stuff as a way of sort of getting some context and maybe thinking about what I might want to do next. So I still kind of was thinking forward, but yeah.
Yeah, the musical analogy of 10,000 Ink Stains is that you put out basically a greatest hits album instead of like a brand new album, right? Even though like you're still an active band, like, I don't know, Chili Peppers or U2 or Coldplay or something, you kind of stopped in the middle and kind of did like a greatest hits.
Yeah, I think it was kind of important to do that. I think for a couple of reasons. I think, you know, the longer you wait, you kind of start to forget some of the stuff, like the details of like what was going on in your life when you were doing those books. And it's kind of nice to have a document of that. Yeah, also it just, I moved studios too. So I was suddenly looking at all this old stuff I had stored everywhere and it kind of stirred up all these old stories and, you know, memories and stuff.
Yeah, so you're like Batman, or I guess more in your case, Moon Knight, right? Like you prefer to operate in the shadows. In your memoir, you write, I am a fairly private person. I don't share many personal details on social media or in interviews. And I always feel a bit awkward talking about myself. That's end quote. That's what you wrote in your memoir. And I've always kind of appreciated that about you. Like it doesn't distract from the work, right? Like it lets you focus on the work. You're not a personality. Like, you know how some comic book creators are personalities, and it's not, I'm not digging them, but it's just like, there's just different types of marketing.
Yeah, I've always been one to let the work speak for itself. You know, the work is really my way of communicating with the world and with my readers. You know, I don't really, that's just kind of how I prefer it. And, you know, a lot of my favorite artists are kind of like that too. It's like you know, they put out their films or their albums or whatever, and that's what you know about them, and that's what they want you to know. And I don't need to know what they had for breakfast on their Instagram or you know, bullshit, you know.
But does it create a contradiction, because you are private, but at the same time your work is very personal, and to me as a reader it feels unfiltered. Like, do you ever consider that a contradiction?
Yeah, it's odd. I almost sometimes don't like to think about it. You know, I mean, I need to do the work because it's just how I'm wired, and I guess that's my way of letting the world know something about me. And I know that it's very personal and kind of raw and emotional and stuff, but it's filtered though. There's a layer through it because, like I said, it's not directly autobiographical. It's I'm using characters and I'm using fiction, so there is a barrier between that and me, I guess. You know.
Yeah. The reason I noticed it too is because I'm the same way. I'm stingy with biography, even though I work in a personal medium like podcasting, and comics is the same thing, very personal medium, especially with the indie stuff you do. But like, the more important thing for me is like, look, 10,000 ink stains is great. Like, look at that. Don't worry about me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like that little arrow in when the lane is closed, right? It's like pointing to this, right? So it's like, this is more important. So I get where you're coming from in terms of like balancing the personal with the private.
Yeah. I think it's, you know, no, yeah, like you said, some comic creators, some artists are really out there, and their personality is kind of part of the whole thing. And I don't know, it's never been my way.
But part of your thing is your Canadiana, right? Like, there's a lot of obviously hockey. There's a lot of Essex County. There's a lot of locations, a lot of Canadianness that runs through your work, especially your indie work. I remember like when the Denver Nuggets were in the NBA Finals, and the play-by-play guy was like, Jamal Murray's from Kitchener, and he starts trying to explain Kitchener, and like millions of people are watching it, and Kitchener is a really deep cut, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, just round that up to Toronto and just like leave it be. But like, how do, like, especially I guess even Americans, but you have such a broad range of readers and fans, how do they know what like Chatham is or Essex County is, or like how do they receive or perceive your Canadianness?
You know, one of the first things I did that kind of got any attention was Essex County, and that was the most Canadian thing I've ever done, and the most specific in terms of like real locations in really small towns in Canada that no one would ever know, but that book did really, really well in the States and in Europe and everything, and it kind of taught me early on that the more specific you can be with your stories, it ironically becomes more universal to people. I don't know why, but maybe because you're able to put in a level of detail and realism into the work that you wouldn't if it was fictional places. And even if people don't know those places or those regions, they feel like they get to know it through the work, or it feels like a real place that's lived in. And I think it becomes, like I said, ironically, it becomes more universal. You know, it's like I know I'm like that when I watch like foreign films and stuff. I don't necessarily I haven't lived in those countries or been there, but you suddenly feel like you're in a little world and it feels real, you know, and I think that's part of it.
One of your recent projects, Fish Flies, does that well. It's very like local Ontario. The whole Fish Flies thing is a real thing. Right? And by the way, as a quick aside, I gotta say, Franny Fox is a fantastic character. I think that's one. She's incredibly endearing. You wrote her with a lot of heart. So I think that's got to be one of your top 5 characters in your body of work.
Oh, cool. I love it. Thanks.
But I also have a soft spot for Colonel Weird, which I guess makes me weird. Yeah. So but it's also just kind of speaks to the range of your work.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
I want to switch a little bit from your indie stuff to your like Marvel and DC stuff. Sure. For the Marvel and DC work you did, like from Green Arrow to Moon Knight, like you write in the memoir, right? I decided to pitch Animal Man exactly the way I wanted to write it. So, like, this again gave you an opportunity, I guess, to talk to your buddy. See, I made a little joke there. Like about being a dad, about being a family. Is that how you view a lot of the Marvel and DC work? Do you view
Yeah.
these powers and these costumes as a metaphor? Is it, and like, is it almost like as a personal metaphor? And you kind of see what works for you and for your life?
Yeah, I think when they're done, for me anyway, when I do them the best ones I've done, Moon Knight and Old Man Green Arrow, it's when I've been able to put a lot of myself into them, and kind of use them like that, like they're like metaphors for whatever I'm facing in my life, and I think those characters are very elastic. You can, as long as you stay true to the core concept of them and don't change that too much, you can do a lot with them. But I've also found more success in doing the more obscure characters, like, because you can do that a bit more. If you're doing Batman or Superman or Spider-Man or whatever, more people know those characters and they have a better sense of how that character should speak and how they should act. And
Expectations.
yeah, it's harder to put yourself into those characters because they're very specific. But when you get a character like Animal Man or even Moon Knight, there's just a little more room to kind of put yourself into them because they're not as iconic, and so I have, like I said, I've had more success when I can either completely reinvent a character like I'm doing now with the Flash and the Absolute stuff, or when I can kind of take a C or D list character that's a little more open to interpretation and do something fun with them.
It's always interesting to me that you I get that you as a comic book reader want gravitate toward these to Marvel and DC characters, but some of the experiences that you write about in your memoir, they're not always positive experiences. It's not here's Moon Knight, come back with 20 issues or something, right? It's there's meetings and politics and all these kind of things, and it's an interesting reveal of how the comics come to us. It's not just the expectations for us as fans of what a Moon Knight comic should be or a Batman comic should be, but it's also all the other things all these other factors that we sometimes overlook to how our comics come to us. Yeah,
and it's always different too. You can't, the thing with when you do your own stuff, like if it's something I'm writing or drawing myself, an independent book, or even the indie stuff that I write and I have a collaborator, we just have more control over that, and there's less people involved, and generally we create those worlds and those characters so we can kind of do what we want with them. But when you're doing the Marvel and DC stuff, a lot of that control is taken out of your hands. It all depends if you get paired with an artist that you click with creatively and an editor, and sometimes you do, and it's great. Like when I did Moon Knight, it was really great. It was like doing a creator-owned book. We had total freedom, and I clicked with Greg Smallwood, the artist, and it was just really great. But then sometimes your intentions might be great. Like I might go into a book, like when I did the X-Men, I really wanted to do a great X-Men run. Of course, why would you take it unless you want to do great? But there's so many factors going on around you that you lose. The amount of control I had over it was very limited, and things can kind of not live up to your own expectations. And that can be company politics. It can be mismatching creatives together, all kinds of stuff that can go on. And I mean, because these are big corporations and they're trying to protect their IP, and it's more of a corporate world, and you're trying to be creative within that, you lose a bit of control. So it is a bit of a gamble doing those characters, and as I've gotten older now, I don't do as much of them. And when I do take on one of those books, I have to make sure that everything's kind of lined up the way I'd want to do it,
Yeah, that makes sense. So that brings up a strange question to ask you, but you're one of the few people who can answer it. So you've written for Marvel and DC, we just covered that, but your focus has always been telling your stories, your individual stories, drawing your stories. So in your memoir, you stressed your goal was never to get to the big two, right? Like a lot of comic book people, they do a lot of indie comics to try and get to Marvel and DC, or even to get to Image, I guess. Now it's 2.5, the big 2.5. Right? So I'm curious about freedom and how it evolves. Like when you started Essex County, you didn't know if people would read it or even care, right? You were free. You're like Bruce Springsteen as a bar band in Ashbury Park, right? Now you're established, you're popular, you have a fan base. Does freedom, I guess, how does freedom evolve or change? You're no longer just writing and drawing for yourself, or is that how you still look at it?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of a unique person in the industry in that I write the Marvel and DC stuff, but I also really write and draw my own stuff that's very unique and different. And I think the advantage I have is that I started off doing self-published comics and then indie comics, drawing my own stuff. And I kind of developed a style and a voice as a creator doing that before I ever got to Marvel and DC. And so that by the time I did start writing stuff for those guys, I was already who I was, and they wanted me to do my own thing. I wasn't trying to fit into their system. So I've always kind of been lucky that I've maintained that creative freedom. And even now, I write the Marvel and DC stuff mostly just because I enjoy it. But from a day-to-day basis, I'm writing and drawing my own creator own stuff and have total freedom. If anything, I probably have more freedom now because of success, where I can kind of do whatever I want and not have to worry as much about if it's going to be published or whatever. I can just kind of indulge whatever creative whims I have, and I know it's going to get published, which is a pretty privileged spot to be. And
does that reduce stress and anxiety? You know what I mean? Versus the hustle and like.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like it does. Now I can just kind of do stuff for myself, to be honest, and stuff that I'm enjoying. And I know that I have enough other people will like it, at this point, that it's going to do well. And I mean, yeah, it takes all the stress away, and you can just sort of really focus on the work itself and not all the stuff around the work, which is the ideal.
And I like too that your memoir also covers, like you mentioned, X-Men, like I guess ones that kind of got away or ones that are like half-baked. I don't know how you want to phrase it, but like they didn't quite come out the way that you wanted them to come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting thing too, because it's like, if you're in this career long enough, this like memoir covers 25 years. You're going to have some like misses or failures or whatever word you want to frame them,
sure.
Right? Yeah. Like it doesn't quite come out.
Yeah. And if you don't take risks, you're not going to, the good stuff's not going to happen either. But sometimes it doesn't work, and it doesn't work. So yeah, if you're doing this long enough and you do as much stuff as I have, they're not all going to be great, but you kind of just hope at the end of the day that the good work outweighs the stuff that didn't work, which I think it has for me. So it's easier to live with those failures. And the failures were never, none of us set out to do bad work or do inferior things. It just, things kind of go wrong, and sometimes it's out of your control, too. So you just kind of have to accept it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so Frog Catchers, I guess, going back to your indie stuff, but Frog Catchers was a meditation on getting older as you approach 40. And now 10,000 Ink Stains is a memoir for your 50th reflection, I guess. Is this like another like Jeff Lemire trend that we can, like, every 10 years or so, there's like a little like...
Get ready. I'm going to age terribly, and you're going to all have to Yeah, I know. You got to put that stuff in the work, because there's a lot of stress around all that stuff getting older, and a lot of anxiety that can come with it. And I don't know, I've always used my comics as a way of, creating something positive out of whatever stress I'm feeling. So,
which explains why a lot of them are dark too.
Yeah, I mean, you get that stuff out in the work, and then you don't have to carry it around in your head all day, and it makes
then the rest of us have to carry it around then.
Yeah, that's your choice. You don't have to buy it.
That's true. And so for your memoir, you write about attending Ryerson University for film school.
Yeah.
Like working as a showrunner for Essex County. You got to visit the Sweet Tooth set a couple of times. I know you weren't directly involved in that production, but you still got to be on set. Like, did those experiences stir up any like film school passions? Like, you feel you made the right choice in terms of like dedicating yourself to comics and going down the comics road?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, they were all interesting, in their own ways, and I'm glad I did those things. But every time if anything, they just reinforced how much I loved comics and how much I love making comics. Film is great, but comics is so much more direct. It can be just me and one collaborator can sit down and create something, and it can be in readers' hands within a few months, without really anyone getting involved or in the way of it. Whereas, if you've worked in film or TV, it's massive productions with so many people involved. There's so much money involved, and a long time for decisions to be made, and everyone has to have their say. And, it's harder to get your vision, just to have a pure artistic vision in the reader's hands. And that's what I love about comics. It's one of the last mediums we have right now that's so direct from creator to reader.
And it's the stress too, because you were the showrunner on Essex County, right? So you got to make I don't know how many decisions a day,
Yeah,
Right.
and so few of them are really creative, like it's all the technical, logistical stuff, and you spend so much stress and energy on that it's hard to just focus on the creative aspect of whatever's going on. Yeah, whereas with comics, it's really just you and a pen and a laptop and a piece of paper, and you kind of just
Hmm.
do your thing.
Do you like doing the balance between like the comics that you're doing just by yourself, the ones you write and draw, like Minor Arcana, or like collaborating with people, a couple of people?
I do like having both. It's nice, but I think more and more, especially as I'm getting older now, and I'm kind of going back to just wanting to do my own thing where I'm writing and drawing more and more. I think that would be my version of retirement will be when I just have one book that I'm writing and drawing and not doing all the other stuff, which I can maybe 5 or 10 years from now, I want to try to move in that direction. But it's hard to pass up collaborating with some of the people I get to collaborate with too, like Dustin Nguyen or it's just there's such good friends, and then we get to create something together too. So as long as I can do both, I'll do it. But yeah, I mean, I think as I get older and my energy and time gets less and less, I'll probably just focus in again on it'll be like full circle from when I started with just doing Essex County and stuff.
Back to was it Ashtray Press, or what was the original name of the company?
Yeah, Ashtray.
Yeah. Does you get to have a shorthand now as you work with the consistent collaborators? Like,
Oh yeah.
in terms of like the scripts, almost the scripts must be more sparse now, right? From what you.
Yeah, like when I work with Dustin now, it's like we've done so many comics together. My just panel descriptions and stuff are like I know how he draws faces and emotions and stuff. I don't have to tell him. Like I can just put he's sad or you know what I mean. Be very simple, and I just focus more on the dialogue and the pacing and the plot and stuff, and let him deal with the visual stuff because there's just a trust between us now, and we kind of know what each other's going to do, so it's easy.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that with like De Niro and like Scorsese, like people that have worked together. There's obviously a lot of shorthand, and I would hate to be on those sets, right? Like a new actor on that, because it's like you know what I mean. Like you're like 300 conversations behind. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So can you give me any updates? There might not be any updates, but can you give me any updates on like Legendary's Black Hammer adaptation? Like, are we gonna visit Spiral City anytime soon?
Yeah, so Legendary, it's no longer with Legendary. It's with someone else now.
Okay.
And I wrote a script about a year ago, I think, for it, and I guess we're just waiting. As you do, you wait, you wait and wait with Hollywood to see what happens.
Yeah, Essex County took a while, like from the way that you wrote it.
7 years or something. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that the same status, I guess, for Gideon Falls? That was attached with James Wan for a little while.
That one's kind of in limbo too. It's been optioned again, and we're just sort of waiting for things to be developed. So that's really there's nothing imminent, it's all in various stages of development, which can mean nothing or could suddenly mean something. You just kind of, you just go with it and you do what you do. And I focus on the comics because that's what I control. And you know what I mean? The film and TV stuff is like kind of just this extra thing. If it happens, great. If not, I'm perfectly happy just having them be comics. So, I don't really have anything to lose.
So the memoir is called 10,000 Ink Stains. It'll be out from Dark Horse. I'll put the link up. Yeah, so at the end of it, you put an inspiring message for the kids. You had a little like PSA, right? Which was that like you want people to pick up the pens and pencils. You want them to make comics.
Yeah, man, it's the best medium. It's such a great way to, I mean, for me, it's been a lifesaver. It's been able to give me a purpose and give me a focus. And, I dealt a lot with anxiety and depression and stuff when I was younger until I started really getting into comics, and it gave me a focus. And, telling stories or just expressing whatever's going on in your life through that medium is great. I think anyone can do it, and, yeah, I just love it. I think anyone can do it and should do it because unlike film and other things, you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for permission. You can just get a pencil and a paper and do it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's up to you to build, like, if you want to put, like, 5,000 spaceships, you just draw it, right? You don't have to worry about CGI or budget or anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and even if you're not, like, the world's greatest artist, as long as you can convey an idea and an emotion and a mood and tell a story, just tell it the way you want to tell it, and someone will respond to that. Not everyone has to draw like Jim Lee or whatever. You can just sort of find your own voice like I did and still be successful.
Yeah, I think was it one of the Vertigo editors? Like, I think he termed your artwork like your unique sensibilities,
Sure.
right? Something like that. I think it was one of the phrases in
You know what,
the.
we can only draw the way we draw. So you just lean into it and find your strengths and find the way you like to tell stories. And if you put your heart into something, it's going to come through to the reader. You don't have, it's not all about, if you want something to be drawn perfectly, take a photograph. It's the mistakes and the weirdness in people's styles that really make them unique and make them endearing. I've always responded more to that stuff.
Well, it feeds back into what you were just saying about finding your voice, right? Like you can pick up any sort of panel or page or cover from your work, and almost everyone knows, oh, that's Jeff Lemire, right? Like you have a style, and like you said, a lot of people can pick up Jim Lee's same thing, right? So it's just
That's his style. He's great at it.
Yeah.
I think that I feel like the more, especially now in this era that we're living in with all this digital sort of artwork kind of becoming easier and easier for people to do with AI and with whatever else, I think it's going to be the stuff that really looks handmade and really looks like someone made it, like it's really looks unique to a person. And that's the stuff people are going to respond to more and more because it's harder and harder to find stuff that feels real anymore because of AI and all the stuff online. So I think you just got to do your thing and like you said, find your own little voice and your own little style and just be true to it.
You're talking about home cooking versus like going to McDonald's or something, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like a burger chain will just be cranking out hamburgers, but you're talking about like delicious home cooking. And the way that mom makes it is completely different than somebody else's mom makes it, right? Like,
yeah.
Well, thank you, Jeff, for like hanging out. Thank you for so many stories and so many adventures. I do appreciate your work. So I've been following you for many years. So it's been quite a ride. So keep making comics. And as I said, the memoir is called 10,000 Ink Stains. Last question: do you feel like you have like not necessarily like wisdom, but you feel more like an elder statesman, like a veteran now? Like you feel like you've got a better handle on how to make comics and how to like write comics?
Oh yeah, I think the more you do something, the more confident you get in. And I've been doing this. I'm who knows how many thousands of pages of comics I've drawn at this point, and or just navigating the industry for this long and still
which is another skill set on its own.
It is, and now I'm meeting young creators who tell me they read Sweet Tooth when they were kids, and it makes me feel old, but it's kind of cool, and I'm like, because I know when I came up, there were creators that I read as a kid who became friends of mine and peers, as I worked with them, and they imparted a lot of helpful wisdom on me. So it's nice to be able to do that to younger creators for sure.
Cool. That's a positive note. We can end it there. Thanks again, Jeff, for everything.
I mean, it's great. I enjoyed it.
Yo, that was Jeff, and his memoir is called 10,000 Ink Stains, published by Dark Horse Comics. I'm Sammy, host of My Summer Lair. It's funny, Jeff is a private person. I think you can pick up on that, and like based on this My Summer Lair conversation, knowing that, I enjoyed exploring that contradiction, like being private versus working in a personal and public medium like comics. I even admitted to Jeff, I'm stingy with biography. I do the same thing. I have a fantastic life. I get to do cool things, especially via this podcast. I'm really grateful. So thank you to all the listeners who push play. Still, I've erected a defined firewall between the pop culture and my life, who I am, because the pop culture is the most important thing. It's not me. So I don't know how to put this. One of the most heinous aspects I detest about influencers is the focus is entirely on them. That's like being excited about the bat signal, not Batman. Bro, I am not here to go on your journey or identify with your struggles. That's not why I go online. I don't find any of that inspiring. The focus should always be on the pop culture, the authentic creators. That's what I've strived to do with this podcast. And not just with this podcast, but also with my pal Sammy, a weekly Substack newsletter. Trust doesn't come because I yada, yada, yada about my journey. Trust comes because I recognize, I understand you too have Google. Trust but verify. I'm simply willing to dig into the stacks for the good stuff. It's understandable. As people get older and responsibilities increase, they don't have time to dig through the stacks for the gold as much as they used to, if at all. I still enjoy digging through the stacks. I want to discover the hidden gems, the overlooked and often underappreciated creators. And I want to share what I've unearthed. That's why I write My Pal Sammy. Somebody somewhere is doing something cool or dope or fresh. Let's find out who that is. That's a really simple pitch. I still like digging through the stacks, and I like sharing what I find. My Pal Sammy at Substack. You can Google it. I'm blown away and surprised and grateful and thankful and overwhelmed for everyone who has subscribed, who has read, who has shared, who has liked My Pal Sammy. Thank you. And thank you for listening to me in a Netflix world. Inkstains, yo.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.